Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Monday, August 11th at 11:33 a.m. And at this point in time, after all the work you've done over the last several years, your feet should be up and you should be relaxed, cool, and calm, knowing that you put in the work. You could be tired, that's okay. Some people get tired, some people are still excited and ready to put in the work and catch a trade. And I've encouraged folks to be prepared to not have to do anything. You already made your purchases. 2023, 2024. We had our best prices towards the ends of 2024. Probably got some last minute positions this year in 2025. I know what I take in 25. Definitely the arrow. That was recently. It was maybe like 2.5 months ago. And I think that was it in 2025. I think that was it. Okay, so that's the point. The point is, what else is there to possibly get? There's nothing else. And the most exciting thing is what folks want me to actually talk about. Folks are talking about yield basis, and to me, um, I mean, it's a game changer. It's it's in the vein of Stargate and Layer Zero doing what they're doing. Like if Stargate merges with Layer Zero and Layer Zero drops a stable coin, that's weird. And it obviously, seamless cross chain. So that'd be a really interesting stable coin to try and compete with USDC and USDT. I mean, who else would be in a better position to compete with the big boys in the room? I mean, what else has a massive narrative? Because back in the day, and I'll remind folks, let's do this in 21. So I had some narratives back in 2021. Maybe we get to the point where it's 2026 narratives. I'm not going to change my pin post. That pin post isn't going anywhere. But I think we're at the point of we can list the 2025 hot stuff. It's whatever's going on with seamless cross chain and what happens with Stargate and Layer Zero. That's very interesting. Um, optimistic super change, super swaps from a Velodrome perspective. That's crazy. Aerodrome, Coinbase full exposure. That's crazy. Linnea consensus narrative, MetaMask, and whatever the hell happens with consensus products and services. That's crazy. Arbitrum and Robinhood, whatever happens there, that's crazy. I mean, hype, and let's see what happens with Ramsey's deploy over there. That's interesting because Ramsey's and Arbitrum are basically dead at this point. Even though the Ramsey's is getting a nice bid because of the Ramsey's deploy at Arbitrum, and frankly, look at the exposure we got from Ramsey's. You got free shadow exposure. That's great. Kingdom has been an interesting experience because um, Cleo went to zero, and Nile got the EtherX drop, and Shadow was the drop from Ramsey, so that worked out well. So basically, every drop of exposure that I purchased to Kingdom doesn't really. I mean, Ramsey still has value, but it's not printing cash. But EtherX and Shadow are printing cash, so it's an interesting path. You know what it is? It's pivoting, and they have pivoted well. Kingdom. Um, partnerships. Clearly, EtherX or Nile became EtherX and EtherX and Consensus and Linnea. That's a partnership, so that's meaningful and opportunistic. Ramsey's deploy on hype is opportunistic. That's cool. And some things die. Things die. Investments don't pan out, and that's okay. Not every investment's going to work. Um, well, those are interesting things that are going on, but what's new? What's potentially new in all of this shit? I mean, black hole is nothing. It's literally the same shit that everyone else is doing. There's nothing interesting there. So what is interesting? Well, frankly, yield basis has got to be the most interesting thing going on right now. And it really changes the equation because it's not just Bitcoin. And that's what folks have mentioned in commentary on social media is like, is it just Bitcoin? Of course, it's not just Bitcoin. It could be anything. And that could monumentally change the equation for a CRV USD supply, unlike any product in crypto. Nothing compares to this yield basis product. If you haven't seen it, um, it starts out 1-to-1, I believe. How interesting? No. I mean, obviously, there's complexities, and I don't need to go through all the documentation. Yeah, position tracks 1-to-1. No, where is it? I'm pretty sure it starts out 1-to-1. But the whole point is from an impermanent loss perspective. How do you maintain what you would draw in Bitcoin terms is the same quantity of Bitcoin that you deposited. And in order to do that, it's a carry trade. I mean, this is just breathtakingly simple, actually. But the math is required, and the math gets the point in the contracts. And this is guys, this is what Mitch is famous for. Mitch has that vision, that sight from a physics perspective to model um, these economic phenomena in terms of this physical reality to a degree. This is modeling, and that's why he's able to create these types of equations that perform as his software has performed. So if you start out at a 1-to-1 and the price of Bitcoin goes up, clearly the LP is selling Bitcoin. So how do you account for your yield basis deposit having the same quantity of Bitcoin? The leverage needs to change, which is the stablecoin component, and that stablecoin is CRV-USD. So the carry trade is the quantity of interest that you have to pay on the the borrowed stablecoin component of the position, and that's offset by the return because it's an LP. It's the transaction fee return. So as long as the transaction fee return is greater than the interest expense associated with the stablecoin component of the LP, the carry trade works. I mean, that's the whole point. The whole point is to encapsulate that into contracts such that it's an automated process. You deposit, carry trade is positive, the position stays. Carry trade becomes negative. I would imagine the contracts are going to unwind it or sell off all the debt and close the debt, or at least there's some way to visualize that there is a bit of loss occurring. And what would the loss be? Loss would be where the interest on CRV-USD is greater than the revenues that from the transaction fees, and that's how loss occurs. In it, the way I see it, the way I understand it, and what's so nice about this design is how simple it is. Um, what was really needed, what is needed for any of this to be possible, is the complete vertical integration, the entire structure. It's not just stable swap and and everything that has been launched by Curve since the original stable swap. But it's also CRV-USD. It's also the LEN protocol, Llama LEN. It's everything. It's a whole vertically integrated structure. None of what YieldBasis is offering is possible unless that vertically integrated structure exists, and it does. So this is just wild what it could do because it starts 1-to-1. You deposit $1 billion worth of Bitcoin into YieldBasis, you're borrowing $1 billion worth of CRV-USD, which is minting it into existence, and there's an associated interest rate. That's it. That's all. That's how it. That's how dollars work. And that's what CRVUSD is. It's a dollar product. It gets minted into existence. And then what matters is how do you manage the value of the dollar, the stable coin, which is a dollar, not much, it's basically the same things. How do you manage that value? And that's exactly what CRUSD has done exceptionally well. It's managed by interest rates. What does that sound like? That sounds like literally how nation states manage their currencies with central banks, because that's exactly what they do. So CRBUSD has been shown to have a capacity to manage itself, manage its value by use of interest rates and peg keepers. And now a new protocol is going to leverage that the capacity for CRBUSD to print itself into existence and facilitate um, returns on single-sided returns without impermanent loss. And that equation's wild. That statement is wild. That's got to be the biggest statement of like a 2026 narrative. If this works and solves impermanent loss, that's wild. Because that's what Bancor tried to do, and that didn't work out. But this does it in a way that couldn't have been done. It couldn't have been done by. It can't be done by anyone because you need to have the integrated contracts. You can coordinate, team to team and protocol to protocol, but the in order for it to get executed in a timely fashion, it just needs to be internal and owned by a single um, deployer. So you have access and you can coordinate cross contract to facilitate the sequence of events for the yield basis protocol to execute as designed. I mean, 2026 narrative. Let's think for a second. There's probably two things. I can think of two things. So if 2025 is seamless cross changes going ballistic, we're probably really getting to the point where um, cross chain liquidity provisioning and not really med mitigation. Okay, we're probably getting to the point where you're going to start seeing dexes, exchanges, and you don't know what chain you're operating on. It's like execute a transaction on mainnet and it grabs liquidity from everywhere. Look at CowSwap, for instance, what they just released. It's so close. Close, exchange, cow. Check this out. So you're on mainnet with USDC and you're going to base chain with ETH. Okay. so it's only one step from here that you're on mainnet with ETH, and then you go to mainnet with ETH, and it basically sources liquidity across Base, Arbitrum, Optimism, and anywhere that CowSwap's integrated with the tent-based exchange protocol. So that's just the next evolution. So my opinion, that's a 2026 narrative, an official Captain 2026 narrative. Narratives for 2026, um, in it's not seamless cross chain, that's invisible cross chain, where you're just accessing liquidity across all chains, and you don't even know or nor need to know what you're accessing. All right, so that's a 2026 narrative. That's official. Um, 2026 narrative, potentially the solving of impermanent losses is coming, and as part of the Curve Federation. God, dear Lord, that could just be wild, wild. Yeah, just $5 billion in CRVUSD changes the equation for revenues on VCRV and frankly VLCVX. Yeah, because it's all knock-on effects. VCRV goes through the roof on revenues. That means curves appreciating. If curves appreciating, LP cash flow is appreciating. If LP cash flow is appreciating, that means BLCBX rentals are going to go up because now uh, the capital efficiency of renting votes just becomes that much better. If Curve doubles in price, the LP revenue and cash flow in LPs doubles. The equations really get weird, and that's the whole flywheel that everyone has always talked about with Curve's voter escrow. And that same equation happens with um, the E33s and the metadexes and the drones. So we have yet to see the flywheels really take off. Uh, the drones don't really get much manual rentals. That's all, the bifurcation of transaction fees uh, per drone design. So it drives itself into the E33 and voter escrow drive themselves in the same yet slightly distinct ways because voter escrow is primarily driven by third party injection of capital to rent votes, whereas the metadexes, the V33s, are driven by self-generated revenue, transaction fees, 100% of them going to vote rentals. So it's a self recycling vote rental system. That that'll be very interesting. So tack that on for 2026 to really see, even for Curve, what it's like for a positive flywheel on voter escrow, Curve's VE, which is original, and modern V33s or Shadow slash EtherX X33, whatever the hell you want to call it, whatever the next step is on top of voter escrow. We've never really seen the full effect of the positive flywheel. Because, I mean, if you look at Curve, I mean, this wasn't really the full effect of the flywheel. Is this? That's why. This wasn't here. This. When convex came online, that wasn't. That was just the supply just finally getting consumed a bit. That was just a cancellation of hyperinflationary decay. I mean, so we are here now at 96 cents, and we find after all this disinflation of the protocol, it's down to 5% on Wednesday. That's coming this week, right? It's August. So Curve experiences a disinflationary impulse this week. And so right now we're really finally on the verge of seeing what only Curve is capable of doing. Curve Federation, that is, because the drones don't need a federation necessarily. That's their iteration on top of voter escrow. And Curve has its federation. Everything's stabilized. Monetary policy is stable, and disinflation is occurring, and there's a bottom. Cue the positive flywheel. So things get weird for the voter escrow and the metadexes, drones, X33, whatever the hell you want to call it. We have yet to see it. What else? Okay, so that's a couple of things for 2026. There's a couple of widespread deployment and iteration of the current monetary policy. That was back in 22. Yep. Well, I mean that still was here. Widespread. Yeah. That was still in 21. This was December of 21. And look, that's where Velodrome, Aerodrome, that's where Kingdom, uh, all Kingdom came from. That's where all these boys, all those boys, when Velodrome, all of those boys at the Kingdom and the drones, those were all the folks that worked on solidly when it was first deployed and they were trying to figure out how to fix it. These are all the same folks that were first hands-on solidly when it's launched and did as shitty as it did. So this is all just starting now. Folks are like, oh, this is old tech. This is all just starting now. Y'all haven't seen anything. 2020 and 2021, tech was launched. 22, everything collapsed in price. What survived? Everything you see now is what survived. Now we get to see what the tech does in an active and stabilized, functional economic environment where growth potential is there. And now you top it off with the fact that growth potential is there like never before with these stupid treasury companies. They're just sucking supply of Ethereum and Bitcoin. So now you got that as a tailwind. Oh, geez, it's nothing like the environment that existed in 2021. Nothing. And we will not talk about 16 and 17. That didn't, it's not even on the radar for comparison. Hi, W. Good morning. Much a pleasure. Athletic Concept. Hi, Cap. Joel. Morning, Cap. Arrow. Anaset. Athletic Concept. Odos. Yield Basis. This is wild. Yeah, Odos. Same story. They have cross-chain capabilities and cow swap and who else had cross-chain? I mean, obviously, cross curve. Cross curve has cross-chain, and look, USDC and Ethereum to Ethereum on Arbitrum. So, big story. What's coming in 2026? As we started the stream, talking about narratives for 2026. The hook morning cap spirits hasn't released the physical card yet, just digital. Yes. So my 2 cents. Spritz Finance is a lovely product. I only have a good experience with it. I'm also really liking this product. Pay. I mean, it was just ridiculously simple and it just works. I don't really see, I don't have like I don't know if MetaMask is its card is accessible in the United States. I didn't try. I don't want to install MetaMask. I don't use it. So I've been using these products. And there was one other product which I didn't, which I could. It's called Cipher Wallet. Apparently they have a debit card as well. But I don't have that. I just have Pay and Spritz, and they have been quite effective from the United States. Um, I I'm not a person that overdoes like debit cards. I don't need it. And frankly, these are all prepaid types of products, but I've had a good experience with them, and Sprint has been around for quite some time, and I really, really hope they continue. I don't want to use someone else. And Spritz does what Pay doesn't. Spritz has bank account transfers, and Pay is just a debit card, which is every all of this is literally an insane world compared to a couple years ago. And back in 2022, 23, 24 was a hostile environment. You had to transfer capital to a bank account. Are the banks going to cut you off? Who's tracking you? Who's looking over your shoulder for what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it? It's just literally a hostile environment. That hostile environment is gone. No longer exists. Now it's just you take care of yourself. If you have a capacity to navigate these financial markets, take care of yourself. That's the sentiment I get from these markets at this point, considering what we've seen thus far from the administration. Impermanent gain. Well, not with yield basis. There's no impermanent gain. Um, impermanent gains on the list. We've talked about that a long time ago, and it's protective in a depreciative environment because it's buying. You're buying the volatile token on the way down. You're basically selling your an LP that's paired with stables. We don't even talk about volatile LP pairs. We're talking about volatile stable. So I mean, it's there. We've talked about that, but fuck it. I don't LP. I don't like LP, and I don't have time or patience to manage concentrated LPs. So I'm highly excited for yield basis and just the whole narrative and the technology and where we've been. It's not just, oh, new product, it's where we've been. It's our history and are we and where are we heading? And the offering of yield basis is absolutely wild from a story perspective. Not just, oh, it's something new, a new shiny token, or whatever the monetary policy is going to be. We don't know what the monetary policy is going to be. Yeah, we don't have that yet. We want YB. And that's not YB BTC. We want VEYB and YB. So we don't have that yet. So I'm not I'm not thinking about that. I already have exposure anyway from VECRP. Arrow, a DEX without knowing which chain you're on. Yeah. Oh my God. That's an excellent point. Now, so what's my 2026 narrative? Notice how the super swaps facilitates the cross-chain exchange, but you still have to select the chains. So I don't know where it's heading or how it's going to play out, but there's still more to come. It's like as I said, you're on mainnet and you just execute a trade and it gets liquidity from all chains and CowSwap does its intents everywhere, blah, 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 and gives you the best possible swap from all liquidity everywhere. But yes, and the super swaps literally just launched and it's a perfect example of everything, the seamless cross chain and the intent system from CowSwap and Odos, all of this. A few short years ago, this stuff was if you could say you're doing the stuff you're doing today, it would have been like, no way, that's not happening. That's magic. But we're doing it today. It's happening today. There's a speculation of good news in the seed chat of tapioca. Can you drop any alpha? No, I haven't looked in a bit. It's clearly not tapioca anymore. Rebrand. It'll launch when it launches. I don't have any necessity to get overly opinionated about it. What occurred has occurred. What is occurring. I'm inclined to think still to this point it's going to launch because so many folks have a significant vested interest in it, and they want it to succeed, not just from a capitalization or capital extraction standpoint. They literally there was always that honest software engineering expression from folks involved, and I expect it to launch. How well that does in the environment when it launches is another story, the economic environment. So there's a lot yet to be seen. Um, so in that regard, I'm quite content with whatever the seed turns into, and I don't have any alpha to offer. One day it'll launch. You mentioned you're interested in the next higher low. Where do you see these ballparks for Curve and Convex, Aero, Velo? No idea for Aero and Velo. Uncharted territory for Curve. I mean, we could really see some weird shit, and I don't care about price points. Like, we're not looking at this lot $56 starting price on Binance when it launched. 56 bucks. I mean, but big numbers. Like, you could easily see 10, 20, $30, and then it crashes to like $3. Okay, would that be horrible? Good? Folks process that how you want. In my opinion, if I saw $10 uh, crash to $3, I'd be like, all right, okay, this is check back in 2030. That's an insane number. That would be insane. Now, if you see like $20 to $30 crash to all-time high, $6, that would be disgusting and insane. My expectation generally is the higher highs are going to be weird, and higher lows are going to change everything. And all you need to do is handle like 2, 3 cycles, and that's it. And then the higher lows take you to where you probably wanted to go to if you were like degenerately gambling and you wanted it to be done in like a month or 6 months. All right, fine. So 2 or 3 cycles, you're literally talking about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. So that's a little crazy for most people's considerations. I think that that is a downright insane achievement. Uh, especially if you're in your 20s. Like I'm this dude in my 40s. I'm like, all right, if I have to check back when I'm 50 to have a significantly changed portfolio, I'd be like, all right, fine. That's how long it takes. And then you got some kid running around their 20s like, oh my God, I can't wait till I'm 30. Dude, you got old people saying they'll wait till they're 50 for great progress with their investments. What's with the impatience? You have all the time in the world when you're young. All the time in the world is when you're young. That's when you should literally just. I've run the numbers. I've showed you guys the numbers. I've told 20-year-olds how to be multimillionaires by their 30s times. It's just, I mean, it's not even like taking risks. It's just buy stuff. It's my rules. Buy more assets. Strike the deal with your parents. Stay at home until you're 30. Get a $50,000 a year job. Invest $40,000 a year. Spend $800 a month because there's your 10 grand. 50 minus 40. Your $40,000 in investments. Rule number one: buy more assets. That's it. By the time you're 30, at 30%, CAGR, compound average growth rate, that's just disgusting. You're sitting on like a couple mil, producing like three, four, $500,000 a year. So, and that's just simple compounding. I don't know what else to recommend from. I don't know. I digress. So Era was talking about higher lows, and I got sidetracked thinking about the insanity of what's going to play out from a higher low perspective and how that could change kids' lives. As we know on social media, these new generations are literally struggling and they're just out there degenerately gambling when they could literally be investing for their 30s and take relatively little risk. They just have to think outside the box and think different and be different. Dare to be different, and different results will occur. Curve Hub says 1 day till inflation drop. That's right, Joel. We get our inflation drop. It's Wednesday, pretty sure. UTC time. So it's coming. Nana, Ethrex. I hit on that earlier in the stream. Linnea consensus narrative is big. I like Ethrex, and obviously I got a large exposure to it vis-a-vis Nile. So that was the opportunity. That was the optimal opportunity to acquire Nile prior to conversion to Ethrex. Um, with regard to Ethrex acquisitions at this point, it's a massive market cap. I don't know. My general sentiment is it's high risk because it has the potential to significantly depreciate. Um, now, bear in mind, like Shadow is where it was when it basically launched. It's at 50 mil market cap, just we're 50 fully diluted, 6 mil market cap. This is a nicely priced product. That's actually nicely priced. Sonic has quite a different narrative than Linnea. 158 mil fully diluted, and obviously the market cap. This needs to be adjusted. Um, the same adjustment that was done for Shadow. I mean, what are you going to say? This is a nice chart. I mean, come on, it just launched. I have no idea what to say. This is too short of data. I literally look at yearly candles on the DXY. This chart is just disgusting. This is an insane chart. I almost have no words for what this is. We're literally at 2023 pricing. So this was all what I'm literally digressing right now because this is all invalidated. That's crazy. And this was all noise. This is all bullshit. It's just don't even think about it. It was all bullshit. It was all degenerate gambling. And I've said for a while, it's like you want to look at this product, you look at this. This, that's it. Nothing else. That is the chart to inspect if you want to understand where we are with CRV. And notice the time frame. This goes back to 2022, ladies and gentlemen. And this is brand spanking new. We're looking at 2.5, 3 years worth of data. You want to look at real data? Now you're looking at something like this and go out to the 6 month chart and try and get a sense of what the hell is going on in the market, looking back to the 1970s. Now that's data. That's data. Even move is a little short for my liking. This still goes back to the 2000.com. Basically, after .com, they started tracking this. As for EtherX, this looks great. This could easily do some interesting things. Would I buy it? Given what Linnea offered was about 60, 70% discount where it is now. So 40, when you bought Linnea, buying in the 20s, you bought down here, 20s, give or take. So this is the price. If you bought EtherX exposure vis-a-vis Linnea, or vis-a-vis Nile, this is where you bought down here. And now you're at 44. Little less than the 20s, maybe even 15 cents. You know what I'm saying, folks. It easily over doubled at this point. I'd have to look at how my fair market value um, of EtherX compared to what Linnea was. It's probably about a little over double, 60, 70% maybe. Anywho, hope that helps, Nana. Eric, can you please talk about the idea of diversification besides crypto and why you're generally bearish? I understand your point generally in terms of meme stocks, but what else is there besides crypto? Property. But I wouldn't do property with regard to investing. I would think of property with regard to ownership. It's like if you have a capacity to buy a second property in another state, that's great. If you really want to do a stupid Airbnb and get a go for it, but I would just want to own the property, and I would rather not have people stay in my damn property. I don't want people sleeping in my second property. That'd be nice to one day. I don't have a second property. But I don't want people staying in my house, renting my house, own a second property. So it's not really an investment. Because investment produces a return, but rule number one, own more assets. So that does play into that narrative. That's what that's on my radar. I like that idea. Stocks, it's just so stupid. I I I, I like property. Go figure. Crypto's property. So I like real estate. I don't think it's a good investment, but I think it's a great thing to own. For what purpose? For what real estate is meant for. For you to have a pair of keys to open a door and sit your ass down inside. That's a great thing to own. Diversification with regard to investment. Gold, precious metals, gold, silver. Gold's done extraordinary. If you bought gold in 2017, 2018, and dare we say earlier, post global financial crisis, GFC, like 2010, obviously, if you bought real estate post GFC as well, the gold has been stunning. I mean, if I didn't adjust my mining and my stock portfolio towards like Bitcoin ETFs, it would have significantly underperformed. But because I adjusted, it's done decently. It has compensated for the underappreciation of the refining and miners that I have historically been interested in. If you want to diversify, maybe gold miners. If gold keeps running, then the gold miners are significantly mispriced. Wheat and precious metals, Newmont, stuff like that. So they're mispriced. But then you deal with the. It's fine. I'm overly critical, maybe, of equities. I just can't stand the idea of people sitting in a boardroom making decisions. I hate that idea. I'm like, where's the software? Just give me software. I want to buy a piece of software that operates a business. Now, if maybe in the future you have deterministic companies that are run by robots and AI run, I don't know. I'm just spoiled by crypto. If you talk to like, and I've done this, I've talked to folks that are older and they participated in like 1990s, 2000s real estate bubble, 2002 to 2008, and they've done extraordinarily well. And then you talk to them about crypto, and it's foreign, it's alien. But fast forward, a person like my personality, I hear crypto, and I'm much more comfortable with crypto. I, w- I don't see the I just don't see the opportunity in real estate. I don't see the stock market. All I see is risk, and that is the opposite of what most people think. Most people see risk in crypto, and that risk is really not understanding it. And that's correct from a Warren Buffett perspective. You need to invest in what you understand. But from my perspective, I fully grasp and understand the depth and richness of the crypto markets. And to me, what crypto does is literally alleviates the risk. It fixes the risk associated with human beings involved with business activity. Crypto fixes the human resources problem, which is the human. What's his name said that in Iron Man 3. He said, it's time for us to fix the human resources problem, the humans. The humans introduce volatility and uncertainty, and software fixes that. So crypto for me is where the comfort zone is. Hope that helps, Arrow. Good thoughts. Good thoughts as always, my friend. DCA man, good morning. Soon, good morning. Much a pleasure. Fellas to basically near the lows anyway. Yeah, yeah. Greatest tech isn't always the greatest investment, albeit that was very near and dear to me because of the tech. So it has like a Frax overtone, maybe. Great tech, just absolutely stunning, breathtaking technology. The technology is getting better. I absolutely love the tech. Relatively underperforming. At least Velodrome has lovely cash flow compared to Frax. That's a point. But both of them fit into that category of, all right, I wish they did a little bit better. Great tech isn't always the greatest investment. It's just is what it is. I mean, Aerodrome is insane. That Coinbase narrative is, what are you supposed to say? I mean, you could have gotten disgusting prices on Aerodrome with early exposure to Velodrome. And, we're talking about those 10-cent prices or 1-cent prices. But you came pretty darn close with a flight school at 28 cents. That's pretty darn close. Yeah, you're talking about the tens, 10 to 20 cents. All right, fine. That's 10 to 20x off the bottom. 10 to 20x off the bottom. But 10 to 20x, we're at a bill valuation. We're talking about, the 10, 20, $30 million valuations on Aerodrome. That's early. 10, 20, 30 mil on a market cap is very early. I mean, literally, that's an early market cap even for the meme coin community. My 2 cents, bill market cap is established, and that's early relative to meat space. Mid cap, large cap in equities is 100 bill, 50 bill, 100 bill. No reason this can't do 50x, 100x and be like, all right, that's a large product. And it'll be up there in the top 10 at this point. And dare we look back at the top 10 at coin market cap? Nowadays, you look at CoinGecko, top 10. Funny how they're all stable coins. To the USDC. I mean, this supply is just insane. Supply, what was it, like 17% inflation? Wild. Lido, USDC, Doge, XRP. I don't know how these things, 109, that's just gross. 15 bill on WBTC. Hype at 14 bill. That's cool. Tron. So here's my 2 cents. My 2 cents. 2026 narrative. Top 10 isn't the most important. I think that number is expanding significantly. Top 50 is important. Expand the number. I think the top 50 changes significantly. Now look at that. The top 50 is 3 bill. What happens when the top 50 are all 50 bill? Okay. 50 bill plus, top 50. So that's basically a 2026 narrative of mine. We see a significant expansion in capitalization. We're going to see a significant expansion in dollar supply. Therefore, market caps are going to go significantly higher because market caps are pretty much multiples of what happens to dollar supply. TVL and market caps are an inflated state of dollar supply because ultimately dollar supply is all that matters with regard to available capital. Market caps are meaningless in that regard. You have $100 billion asset with $5 million worth of liquidity. If you sell 100% of that $100 billion asset, you're literally getting $5 million. So it's all about liquidity. So as I've always talked about, it's the dollar supply that matters. Anyhow, tape pusher in the house. APR percent means nothing in crypto because it's all so volatile. I see 40% APR. Yeah, that's correct. Maybe I could present more useful data to manage people's expectations. Yeah. Listen, everything is speculative and gambling in these crypto markets, and yeah, it's volatile. That's why I don't LP. I don't LP. The APR that matters. The only APR that matters is your accounting APR. You got $100,000 portfolio, and at the end of the year, you generated $30,000 at a 30% APR. That's the APR that matters. Everything else doesn't matter. It's bullshit. I don't like LPing though. I can't deal with it, especially the concentrated liquidity. I'm very much interested in YieldBasis. That'd be great because I would deploy Bitcoin. The idea of solving impermanent loss is absolutely wild. No rehypothecation. It's literally just LP and rebalancing of an LP. So the Bitcoin's there. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. What's the inflation drop mean? Less emissions on the current monetary policy, disinflationary impulse. Same thing that Bitcoin goes through every 4 years. So every second or every block of every day, there's more and more and more Bitcoin in existence. And then every 4 years, there's less. And then every 4 years, there's less. So it's the same thing with curve. Every year, there's less that gets put into circulation. There's less new Bitcoin in existence now. There's going to be less new curve put into existence. The the inflation rate of Bitcoin goes down every 4 years. The inflation rate of curve goes down every year. Hope that helps. What does the inflation drop mean for a disinflationary impulse? The disinflationary impulse is in the face of continued buy pressure, unchanged buy pressure, is price appreciative. So we're about to experience the curve, what's equivalent to Bitcoin, the curve halving. It's not the halving because it's the curve's disinflationary impulse. Bitcoin experiences a disinflationary impulse every 4 years. Curve is about to experience its disinflationary impulse basically tomorrow. Hope that helps. Putting aside dollar value, is there no loss if you gain more desired units? Ah, how do you measure progress? How do you measure success? In the end, your success is about productivity. So, what does productivity mean? Manufacturers produce goods and services, and they generate revenue. So there's economic productivity, but there's also physical productivity. What are you actually producing? So from our individual perspective, especially from these crypto markets where most people are just passive investors, not like producing software and writing code, it's not just units. I would say productivity is, if you can you make a bill payment? Can you throw $200 on a crypto card and go to supermarket and get supplies? Can you pay a mortgage? Can you pay a car payment? Are you actually producing capital that you are putting to use? So that's the real way to assess the success of a portfolio or the success of capital management that you're executing. That's my 2 cents. Hey Cap, I think each investor needs to know their lifestyle. Why my time horizon? Why is 2030? Where I want to buy my time from the market. I don't want stuff. So rule number one until then. All of these are great statements. I don't have anything to say about what you said other than they're great statements. Everyone needs to define their own time horizon. Everyone needs to define their own expectations. People need to avoid having overinflated expectations. The more humble your expectations are, the more likely you are to achieve your expectations. I don't want to be a super duper millionaire. I don't give a crap. That's not my expectation. I literally just want to put $500 on a debit card and go to the supermarket so I could feed my kids. That's all I want to do. Anything more than that is insane. The fact that we've done what we've done in these markets and we can do what we do in these markets. So, lowered expectations. I just very stay. The more humble you are, the more easy it is to achieve your expectations. So stay reasonable, folks. And everything you said, Dean, as quite often is quite reasonable. Thus, in permanent gain, if you can wait, that's another story. You mentioned the units earlier. I appreciate the perspective. In permanent gain, and that's standard X times Y equals K type LP. And I don't know, there's value in a traditional Uniswap V2 style LP. There's value in the concentrated designed um, exchanges. And there's going to be value in YieldBasis, and they're all different products. There's value in the V3, V4 design where you could do whatever the hell you do on Uniswap. No idea who uses Uniswap. I mean, literally, who says I'm going to go to Uniswap? I mean, I'm just so biased from like CowSwap and the aggregators. Why not use an aggregator and get the best price possible? It just makes no sense to me. Anyhow, great comment. Yes, indeed. Greg, which of the five businesses that arbitrage come from into arbitrage? A derivative, I would say, to a degree. I mean, in theory, you could have a token automatically arbitrage. and that's a derivative product. Simple as that. Arbitrage. I mean, maybe there's like one more business category, and that's like active. Obviously, there's trading, and that's not really five businesses, but arbitrage, maybe that's a component of how to capitalize on these markets, and it's not really a business at all. Arbitrage, because that's active, maybe. I think that's a reasonable statement. When Velo getting an external deflationary every week, I think Velo's disinflation is weekly. The same with Aerodrome. I think that is the schedule. It's disinflationary schedule. Food for thought. That's why really the drones are and solidly originally was an evolution of the design of Michael's design. That's what Andre had in mind when he came out with solidly. And it really is an evolution. And the X33 is an evolution of the VE33. And there'll be better designs, but better doesn't equate to what everyone uses. And that's why we used um, tapes instead of Betamax. And that's why we used CDs instead of Laserdisc and DVDs and Blu-ray instead of Laserdisc. That's why. Uh, that's why the greatest tech isn't always what everyone uses. And that's why the greatest tech isn't always the best investment. Sometimes the market chooses not the best tech to be the most popular consumed products and services. Hope that helps. DCA, man, talking about property. What do you think about RAAAAAC? Love it. Great, great time and money spent in everything they're building. It is just a well structured operation, and there's some passion put into it. I like everything they're doing, and I look forward to seeing what the market does with its product and service offerings into the future. We don't know what this crypto space is going to be capable of until you really get the capital expansion. And we're not there. It's only a couple $100 billion. When you start to get a couple of $1 trillion in the space, you can start to see spontaneity and more choices being made and like RWAs. We have no idea where that's heading, especially when you get a tenfold increase in RWAs. The potential for property on chain is extraordinary, in my opinion. And there's your RAAC narrative. Sir Joe, President accounted for. Sir, yes, sir. Much pleasure. Adam, how are you? Have you heard any updates from Tapioca? I have not. Yes, I saw the test net. It reminds me of the experience from Tapioca, and it was lovely. I love their signature process. Their user interface was lovely and is still lovely. Now, they're just obviously rewriting code and doing things like that, but I expect the product to be extraordinary. Um, that's my opinion. I saw their test net, and um, it reminds me when it launched, when Tapioca launched, and just was stunned by their signature process. It was so smooth and seamless and quite elegant, and it still is the same. The Hawk, I love when you talk dirty about Curve Flywheel. A lot to be excited about with Curve. Extraordinary. We haven't seen what it's capable of. This market isn't a market yet. This market is just giving us a foreshadow of what this market will be. And when I say this market, I mean quote unquote crypto. And crypto isn't crypto. And that's what people don't understand. Crypto isn't crypto. This is an economy, an emerging market, an market of emerging markets. And you can't understand any of that unless you start thinking in terms of nation states and what the hell is an emerging market. And then you have to think about the economics of an emerging market, the economy of an emerging market, how central banking works in emerging markets, and how all of that fits into the bigger picture of the global economy. And how does an emerging market compare to, frankly, Europe, which is technically an emerging market compared to the United States? It just is, but it's also an established market to a degree, or at least increasingly established as compared to an emerging market, let's say in Africa. much smaller economy. But they're all related and they all have different attributes and and connections and interactions and knock-on effects. And there is this tapestry of economic forces that flow throughout the global economic system. And this crypto space is not crypto. It is one of these markets. It is an emerging market. That's just going to get weird, bro. Aerometrics for Velo look better than Frax. Yeah, it's a true statement. Um, man, Frax is some great tech, but y'all know what I say about great tech. Great narrative, Genius Act, regulated stablecoins. It's a big deal. I have no idea. We will look back, and you know what I always say. We will look back in 2028, 2030. And we will see a lot of our narratives play out. We will see our 2026 narratives that we started the stream today pretty much play out as expected. And then we will see, yep, I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming. And that's part of the equation. And some things will do extremely well that we didn't expect, and some things that we expected to do well may go to zero. And that's diversification. So, my wife, and if she hears me right now, she'd be like, "Oh shit, he's talking about me on stream." I'm looking over there to see if she pops her eyes around the refrigerator. Nope. Yep, there she comes. She always says, "Oh, you're all in the crypto space." I'm like, one, no, and we have exposure here, here, and here, and a couple different things. But I'm like, there she is. There she. I know it. Um, cryp- People have a certain taste or sentiment about crypto, and they're like, have too much exposure to crypto. But crypto isn't just crypto, as I keep saying. It's this market of markets, this emerging market. So it's not just, oh, you own crypto. You own different types of businesses, different types of products and services in different sub markets. Emerging market of emerging markets. Like optimism is a different story than base. Is a different story than mainnet. Is a different story than Arbitrum. So there's diversification within these crypto markets. Anyone who's afraid of crypto markets lumps it all together to the great quote unquote crypto. That's what they're missing. Not including token PA. Everything you're saying is absolutely true. And the extent of what I could say is the greatest tech is not always the greatest investment. And Stu, I like gold and precious metals. I think real estate is more of a headache, though, from an investment standpoint. DPIN, CRE, 5, 10, 20 years, how to get outsized real returns. Of course, it's all a headache because of humans. And everything you said is the truth. But as I said earlier, I like the real estate just not as an investment, just something to own. It's property. That's meaningful. Crypto is property. Yeah, I haven't LP'd in years, which is why YieldBasis is quite interesting. Yes, indeedy. Certainly very interesting, my friend. Dean, physical gold is probably the most comforting monetary asset in existence over a long enough time horizon. Absolutely. In the end, Peter Schiff's going to be proven right, and we're all going to be humbled. I would say he has a good chance of being proven right in many regards. He's wrong in many regards, especially over shorter time frames. That motherfucker's we're just never going to hear the end of it. At some point, I would not be surprised if he's proven right, and we will all never hear the end of Peter. Anywho, that'll be the day. Why pay uni, right? Or just why not just use CowSwap? Just use CowSwap. Just use CowSwap. I mean, what's the point of using anything other than CowSwap? I don't know. Hey, Diego, much a pleasure. Much a pleasure. Hope all is well. It's been a while. Tay Pusher, they're telling us the plan. They're screaming at us. I mean, you got Besson out there screaming at us. They're telling us the plan, and they're not going anywhere for years. And they've already pushed through laws. The plan is literally law. RAAC is Regnum Acquisition, Regnum Aurum Acquisition. RAAC. You know RAAC. You know these boys. It's K Crushers project. They just add the bots. These look great. Love these. I can love NFTs. Doesn't mean I buy them often. Kind of wish I had Obama. I don't really want to drop 10 grand on one though. Jesus. Anyhow, it's participation. It's acknowledgement and stuff like that. And it's everything that we know NFTs are. They're pretty. They're exciting and misleading in some regard and mysterious. What are they? What are they going to do? What are they going to allow us to do? NFTs, man. Oh, yeah. My favorite NFTs are fast food punks. Fast food punks. Those are my favorite NFTs. Fast food punks.com. These are my favorite NFTs. Not the original punks. Those are too expensive, and I'm not rich like that, but I love the fast food punks. Not Gen 2. Not Gen 2. Gen 1 fast food punks. Anyhow, she stopped listening. Yes, she's right. Yes, she did. Thin Air, thank you for free wisdom, Cap. Much pleasure. As always, thank you, Cap, for sharing your opinion and making people more rational every day. Why not LP on curve? Less, I don't have patience for LPing. I just don't. I don't want impermanent loss. Yield basis might change everything. It might be like game changing. I don't know. I'm sure as hell excited for it. And it's on my 2026 bingo card. Thank you all for joining me today, Monday, August 11th at 12:40 p.m. 167 people made it to the end of the stream. I appreciate all of you, and you are all now that much more rational because of it. I wish you all a good week. Stay cool, calm, collected. Don't make any impulsive decisions. Stay humble and, relax, kick your feet up. And I will see you guys and gals later this week. Until then, peace.